Something huge is coming. We're going to be talking about NBA draft prospect Tre Johnson meeting with the Chicago Bulls and if the Chicago Bulls should be interested in drafting him in this upcoming draft. This is your host, Rico Greenhowe, and you have found yourself on another episode of Bulls Digest. And so before we jump into it, wanted to remind you that 71.6% of you that watch are not subscribed to the channel. So like Modest Mazelis does in games, make sure that you slam dunk on that subscribe button for us, as it means a lot to us here at Bulls Digest as we try to reach our end of the season subscriber goal. And with that being said, let's go ahead. Let's jump into the content. And so we are talking about NBA draft prospect Tre Johnson. And so if you have not heard, Tre Johnson did meet with the Chicago Bulls at the NBA draft combine. He played for the University of Texas, and according to the Ringer, they have him at 7. I have seen that in some mocks he's anywhere between 6 to 13. Remember, the Chicago Bulls are picking at pick number 12 here. And so if you're not familiar with Tre Johnson, he is 6'6", 190. He has a 6'10 wingspan, 37.5 vertical. And so you have some good metrics here for Tre Johnson. Going into the numbers, 19.9 points per game, 2.7 assists, 3.1 rebounds, 0.3 with the blocks, 0.9 in steals, 39.7 from three, 87.1 from the free throw line, 42.7 from the field, and 2.1 as far as the turnovers. And so let's go ahead. Let's jump into the things that Tre Johnson does well. So I think that the bottom line for Tre Johnson is he is an absolute scorer. He's a bucket getter. And so talking about how he gets his buckets, he is terrific as a three-point shooter, and he can get it on the catch and shoot. He can also come down in the transition off the dribble. He is very comfortable either way, and so he's lethal that way. He can definitely knock down three-point shots in a variety of different ways, and so that is point number one with him. Next, look, I love his movement. I think that he has a terrific feel for the game. You can tell that this is a player that knows when to get to a certain spot in the transition. He's also going to be the player that understands how to relocate off of drives and things like that. So he understands that, how defenses are collapsing and things like that. So, that is a good thing to see, because this means he doesn't need to have the ball in his hands to be effective. You just need to find him. So I do like that with his off-ball movement. Next, look, I love how he comes off of screens. I think that if you look at his highlights, some of the things that you will see is whenever they had these out of timeout calls and things like that, he was perfect at coming off of these screens and really executing. And so he's terrific at getting a defender hung up on the screen and then getting to his jump shot. So I love how he's able to set a defender up in the screens and things like that. Next, look, I think that he's solid off of the bounce. And so he's not the most shiftiest player out there with his handle, but he does have enough kind of in his bag to where he will create some space. He can get to a spot and get his shot up. And so you definitely like that. I think that that's something that he can become better at. And he does have a little bit of a fadeaway too. And so he has a little bit of a turnaround and things like that. So I do like that dimension of his game, that he's just not strictly sitting behind the three-point line. And so next, look, as a playmaker, he's solid as a playmaker. I think that you're looking at a guy that knows how to make the basic reads. He's going to be a guy that he's going to make the pass once the defense rotates and things like that. He's not going to be a guy that tries to do anything over the top and get himself into trouble that way. We'll talk a little bit more about the turnovers, but I didn't necessarily see it from him trying to create so much with his passing and things like that. More so, I think it comes to him being a better finisher. And so he's basic as a passer, not going to hurt you that way, not bad. And so next, when you look at defense, I think that this is where the real issue starts with, Tre Johnson, because defensively, when you look at the highlights and things like that, it's a player that to me struggles to stay attached to his man. Excuse me. And so when you're talking about staying attached, here's a guy that to me, he needs to not get hung up on screens as much. He has bad positioning out there as well. So that's one of the things that I did not like, bad positioning, getting hung up on screens. He's pretty bad, I think, at the chases and things like that. So, if you come off a screen and he's chasing, I didn't like necessarily the effort and stuff that I saw there. And then next, just when you screen him, it just seems like it's over. The play is over once Tre Johnson gets to a screen. And so I think he's got to get a lot better at that. And so those are really, I think, some of the negatives with him is defensively. And then lastly, going back to the turnovers, the issue is not the passing, it's his ability to finish. He really runs into a wall at the basket, and he's got to get a lot better as a finisher because, that is where I think a lot of this, the turnovers and stuff like that really came from. Not the passing, just the fact that he gets hung up in the air. He gets hung up into some awkward kind of finishes and stuff like that, and it turns into a turnover because if you're missing, layups and stuff like that at the rim, or, you turn it over at the basket, you fall down, it's basically a free run for the defense on the other end. So he's got to get better as a finisher. Defensively, he's got to get a lot better as far as his positioning. He cannot get hung up on screens, bad at chases, and so I'd like to see a lot more effort with him. And so I think that those are the things to improve upon. And so now looking at his player comparison and who he compares to, he reminds me a lot of a Devin Booker type of player. Like I do see that because Devin Booker able to get the catch and shoot. He's a guy that can knock down three-pointers in different ways. And then when you talk about having a little bit of a fadeaway, that's definitely Devin Booker being able to score from the mid-range and stuff like that. Like I definitely see that Tre Johnson is not going to have the issue scoring, but he's got to get a lot better defending, a lot better getting to the basket or whatnot. But I got him as a Devin Booker. I think that that's something that it just reminds me of him as far as a player comparison, shades of that. And then as far as how this shakes out for the Chicago Bulls, I think that the bottom line here is that if Tre Johnson is slated to go at 7, then you would think that the Chicago Bulls are, if they're that interested in him, just because they met with him doesn't mean that they would go out and get him. But if they wanted to, they would have to certainly go up and trade for him. And if they were going to make a trade for him, it would make you think that, one of the guards would certainly have to be maybe on the trading block to get up to go get him. And I would think that AK would be maybe looking to move, maybe Kobe White. Maybe he's a guy that is on the table there if they're trying to get up and get Tre Johnson at pick 7. And that's, again, this is just a mock and saying that he's going to be at 7. Like I said, I've seen where he can go anywhere from 6 to 13. But just saying if the Bulls were having to go and get him, they're certainly going to have to give something up. And I would think that it would be a guard like Kobe White that would have to go. Not in the camp of moving Kobe White, but I think that that's something that the Bulls would have to consider if they wanted to go get him. And then, like I said, going back to it, does AK really want to bring a guy in that, yes, he's an absolute bucket getter, but defensively, I really think that he's going to have to put in some more work and some more effort, to be, I think, a solid player on both ends of the floor, like a solid two-way player. Because right now, I just see a player that's going to be offensively gifted, but then on the other end of the floor, defensively, it is going to be a challenge. And that means that if he doesn't get any better defensively, you had better have some things around him, rim protectors, some other solid wings and things like that that can help him out if he gets beat on the defensive end. And so anyway, you guys let me know in the comments here what you guys are thinking. Do you feel like that the Chicago Bulls should, in fact, be looking to move up for Tre Johnson? Do you think that the Chicago Bulls, just simply doing the due diligence here, meeting with him, have really no interest in Tre Johnson? Love to hear what your thoughts are. And as we always say, look, go Bulls, and I will see you guys on the next one. All right, peace.